Hey everybody, today is June 16th, 2026, and you're listening to the While We Still Can podcast. Thanks for tuning in. We've got Tina here with us today, and we have our special guest, Scott Bennett. Welcome, Scott.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Thank you. Yeah, we were talking before we pressed record, and I've been looking at some of your stuff online, and it's really cool. You've got, I know you've got a Substack, and you're on Twitter, and you're kind of all over the place. So,
Actually,
um,
not Twitter. Twitter's one of the only ones I don't do, but
sorry,
I do.
I'm
No,
thinking
that's okay.
TikTok.
But I do Substack, I do
Mhm.
TikTok, I have Instagram. I'm Let's Make Them Pay Book on Instagram, and I also am on YouTube. But it seems people have the hardest time in the whole world finding me on YouTube.
I see.
I feel like maybe there's some suppression involved.
Indeed. It seems to be the case these days. Well, tell
Yes.
us what you're all about, man. It kind of seems like the common thread might be following the money and just, being a champion for justice wherever you can. What
Yeah.
got you into making videos and getting
Well,
out there?
okay. I got into making videos because I was writing a book for about 10 years, and I wasn't anywhere close to finishing that book. But I was thinking about, I really want to just get this message out. And my kids were on TikTok. And so I was just learning about the platform, and then I got a TikTok account because the kids had one, and I wanted to keep an eye on the kiddos and what they were doing, teenagers, and then I ended up falling in love with the TikTok and really enjoying it, and then I was
It's
like,
kind of addictive, isn't it?
totally, I'm
Yeah.
intentionally so, but I thought this might be a really good opportunity. I could use all the stuff that I've been working on with my book as material for a TikTok channel and a Substack, and yeah, so I started the Substack and the TikTok at the same time. I started my other channels at the same time too, but you can't tell by the follower counts. I'm getting up close to 100,000 on TikTok, which
Oh,
is a
wow, good
nice
job.
round number. Which, yeah, it
Mhm.
makes me very proud. But like, uh, I just broke 1,300 on Instagram, and I think I'm around like 1,200 or something on YouTube. So that suppression is a real thing.
Well, your content is perfect for TikTok. It's just long enough and you're entertaining when you talk and you know
Thank
what you're
you.
talking about and you make it fun. So
Thank
that's
you.
really what caught my eye on TikTok. I was like, oh, I would totally listen to him give me a lecture. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so and you know what you're talking about. So what was your book going to be? What Tell us about your book.
Well, when I first started writing it, I thought, um, I was completely disenchanted with the two-party system in our country, and I felt like, well, I did a post not too long ago calling them good cop, bad cop, how the Democrats always play the good cop and the Republicans always play the bad cop, but they're both cops.
Yes.
They're both
Yep.
working for the same investor class that's, making political donations to them. So, so I thought a third party. I thought, oh, let's focus on maybe, some kind of third party that we could unify behind and come up with ideas that could, start giving the public an actual voice in our politics, because I feel like we're completely shut out. And so that was kind of the genesis of the book, was, come talking a lot about the governmental problems and the advantages that the wealthy have in our system. And the more I talked about it and the more I learned about it, the more I was like, a third party is not what I am. I don't think that would work. And I kind of think that we need to really agitate for a new constitution entirely.
Which is a foreign
Yes.
concept to most people, to think that
Yeah.
we need things to
Well,
change that profoundly.
Yeah, I agree. I think, we all grow up in the same propaganda system, and we grow up going to social studies class and government classes, and hearing about how this is the world's greatest democracy, which is something all of our political leaders like to say over and over again, the greatest democracy of all time, the world's great, and, we when you have that message reinforced constantly, you believe it, even if you don't, I don't know, even if you might not be inclined to believe it. People tend to go along with that after a while. And a big part of that is this idea that our Constitution is this really, document that really gives us all these democratic powers. But I always like to point out that the best parts of the Constitution were all amendments that were passed after the Constitution was written, and most of the framers of the Constitution didn't agree with the amendments that were ultimately passed, especially the Bill of Rights. So I don't see why we couldn't come up with something better that includes all of the things that we like about our Constitution, like freedom of speech and trial by jury and habeas corpus and all that, which is all under threat now.
Right.
I don't see why we couldn't come up with something that's better and that doesn't so obviously prioritize the needs of the landholding class.
Yeah. I'm sure lots of people, and perhaps even myself, would argue that we could amend it again into what we want it to be, and not have to start from scratch but that
Yeah,
would take
I thought that for a long time too. I'm going to be honest. I thought that too. Part of my original idea for my book was 3 constitutional amendments that I thought could help get us back on track.
Okay.
And I think it was just a little too cute. I think we really need to start reckoning with how much the system is working as it's intended to benefit the landholding class. And we can't forget that the framers of the Constitution were the wealthiest men in the country when that document was written. No one else could afford to take off 6 months in the middle of the summer during in an agricultural society. They all took off during planting season and were in Philadelphia for 5 or 6 months writing that. No normal person could afford to do that unless they had wealth.
And let's not ignore who was home doing the work on their farm for a lot of them. Right?
Absolutely. Slave labor, women's labor that was not compensated, and on top of all that, you had the wealthiest men in the country. George Washington, during that time, the way to tell who was wealthy was by how much land a person had, and nobody had more land than George Washington during the time of the Constitutional Convention.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
Yeah, so it's like our first Supreme Court Justice, Chief Justice John Jay, said during that period. He said that the people who own the country ought to govern it, and that's what we ended up with, and that's what we still have. And Elon Musk and Bezos and all the techno overlords and massive landholders like Bill Gates, who started out with software and now holds more land than anybody in the country. They're really the ones who are most important to our entire political class, and the rest of us are not.
It's true.
And part of that is because of the system that was drawn up in the Constitution.
Yeah. I mean, everybody but white male landowners had to fight tooth and nail to get the right to vote.
Well, it was in the 1830s when Andrew Jackson finally extended the franchise beyond white male landholders to just white males. And then it was another 100 years before we got women the vote, and black folks got the vote with the 14th or the 15th Amendment, but didn't really have it until Jim Crow laws were abolished with the Voting Rights Act in the 1960s, and now that's being stripped away again.
It's a slow process, and now they're ruining that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I've been disappointed with how many people in the United States are okay with withdrawing women's right to vote. And I just don't understand. I'll see women on social media that they're okay with their husband submitting a vote for the household.
It's totally absurd. I see that too, and it's so disheartening.
Yeah, I think the thing you have to give the Republican Party credit, and not like you say, the bad cop party right now, credit, because they have pulled the wool over people's eyes so well over the last several decades, especially, that across the board people are voting against their own interests. Whether you're a rural person or you're a low income, low economic person, like everybody.
Yeah, but I think the real problem is with our electoral system. The people who will actually put the public interest first are not given a bite at the apple. The only way to become somebody who's a viable contender is to have the support of a lot of really wealthy people. So
right.
and that's both sides. That's Democrats and Republicans, and that's why one thing I've been talking a lot about on my channel is sortition, which is something that it's basically just election by lottery. So instead of holding elections, we would just randomly choose people to represent us in government, and this is not a new idea. This is something that they actually had in ancient Athens when they would choose their boule. They would have a lottery, and people would just be selected at random to represent the people in their legislature. And it's also something that we have in our own system, which is jury. We have juries, and they're all randomly selected. So it's not like it's this totally crazy idea that nobody. Whatever. If we want to talk about Tina and bring her in, okay.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. When you first said that about at random, I was sitting here thinking of, wow, that could really go south,
Right.
depending on who got called.
Sure.
Yeah,
The thing I love
jury
about
duty
it,
it's the same thing. You're right.
yeah, the thing I love about it is, it takes the power out of the hands of the rich. Because because you could generate like a representative sample for a national legislature that included people from every state, and
Right.
it would be 50% women or 51%, whatever the actual number is, and you could have minority inclusion, so that the number of African American representatives could reflect our national population, and the best thing about all of that is that rich people would only make up less than 1% of the
Right.
legislature.
That's so true. Yeah. Well, and I feel like, that's an interesting concept, and I'd like to hear you talk about that more. Um, but I feel like the route we're on now, if
Yeah.
that isn't possible, if we could just change a few laws and take the money out of the system to the profound degree it's there now, that might go a long way. Maybe shortening, and again, this is probably stuff you've thought about through the years, but shortening our election period, limiting how, when people can purchase TV ads and declare that they're running, that kind of thing. Maybe capping their election fund. I don't know, but
Sure.
there's got to be a reasonably easy way.
Those are all great reforms, and I've looked at a lot of those in my posts in the past, and there are some others that I would definitely add, like ranked choice voting, or other things that would what we have now is first past the post, which always means winner take all. So if you get 51% of a vote, and the other person gets 49%, the 51% takes the seat. And so,
Absolutely.
all the people who voted for the 49%er don't get a voice. So there are a lot of, but the more I think about it, the more disenchanted I am with elections themselves. Aristotle said back, 2,000 years ago that that elections support oligarchy, and our system is proving that. It's proving it every day.
Yeah, that's where we are.
Yeah. So I just don't see reform as being the path to getting out of this mess. I think desperate times call for desperate measures, and I think at 250 years, this Constitution is getting pretty long in the tooth. None of the founders, Thomas Jefferson thought there would be a new Constitution every 25 years or so, I think it was. So, they weren't expecting this to last this long. Uh-oh.
Well, okay. Can you hear me?
Yep,
I
I can hear you.
Okay. Are you good? Are you good, Scott?
I'm good. I'm
Okay,
good.
okay. So I'm good now too. I'm so sorry about that. Well, yeah, we talk about this all the time. The system is functioning exactly the way it was intended to protect the people in power. And people are always like, oh, our founding fathers. And I'm like, no, they literally had slaves. They did not think everybody was freaking equal. So don't even start with that shit. And then you think the Epstein stuff's new? Yeah. No.
Right.
What slavery? Right. What do you think the women went to bed at night, or the little girls? Stop it. No. Be real.
Yeah.
So, I am now fully on the yeah, it's time. It's time for something new. Maybe a little, I don't want to say, I don't want to bring matriarchy into it, but maybe, maybe like do half and half women, maybe like let them in
No,
there a
I
bit.
think we should talk about that. I am totally into matriarchy, and I love to talk about it because I think people have this mistaken impression about matriarchy would just be like the opposite of patriarchy. So instead of men on top, you have women on top, and they're dropping the hammer down on men and treating and putting men into a place in society like women are now. But that's not what matriarchy is about at all. Matriarchy is much more equal, much more equality, where everybody has a voice, everybody is equal.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I feel like with matriarchy, I'm like, okay, think about it like this. Like women know, and it's not all women are good. Like we got Ghislaine out there, like we got shitty women too. But
We got
but
Ghislaine.
but I think what the difference is women are more likely to police those women.
Yeah.
And like the bonobos, I always go back to the bonobos. I'm
Yes,
obsessed
I was
with the
gonna say
bonobos.
that.
And so I'm obsessed with them. And so like it if I'm kicking you out of the group, like I fully am on the thing. If you do that, we gotta, because we have to break the cycle. Like we
Yeah.
know that, like until we can find, maybe AI can find us some science to like find rehabilitation. I don't know. Maybe the data centers will be put to good use, Scott. um,
Well, here's hoping, I guess.
I know. But yeah, like you're out of the group. You gotta go because this just is gonna keep going. So
Yeah.
I
I saw online. I saw a TikTok about it's like if when you so it's like when you get a group of men together, like when the Knicks won they won the basketball situation playoffs, and you see the mobs of dudes and they're flipping over buses and they're starting fires and they're shooting each other and just acting like idiots. And then you see this humongous group of people at a Taylor Swift concert, which of course 95% of them are females, are women. And it's like when men get together in large groups, when women get together in large groups.
Yeah.
One is
Yeah,
creating
that's
a
true.
riot and the other is singing,
Yeah,
together.
you do need social structure set up to encourage that. If you ever have read David Graeber and David Wengrow's book, The Dawn of Everything, they talk a lot about, they look at a lot of the anthropological record, the archaeological record, talking about matriarchal societies in prehistoric times, and that was part of it. Was like um, if there was a male who was being aggressive and who was being hostile, they had ways of shutting them out and just being like, "Get out of here, buddy." And they, the same with authority. Like authority was like a temporary thing, and it was something that everybody was agreeing to, and it was like a temporary thing. So like there'd be like a village chieftain. But he would only be the chieftain for like the 2 weeks when everybody got together in the big, all the
right.
different tribes came together in this big thing, and it was only there at that place in that certain amount of time, and people could still laugh in that tribal chieftain's face, and be like, make me or whatever. I don't know,
Right, right.
but yeah.
Well, at the end of the day, I think you're like you said before. I think men are scared that if women are in charge, they're going to treat them as poorly as they've treated women from the beginning of.
It's an unconscious tell.
Yeah.
You know, and also I think one thing that I'm not going to say gives us an advantage here, Scott, but we know the work that goes into creating that life, like that 10 months of, you know,
Sure.
and
Yeah.
I'm just way less likely to send you off to war. You know what I'm saying? Or
Yeah.
I put a lot of work into that. And then you're just gonna and then we're gonna pay tax money to blow it up. Like what? No.
No. No. Yeah.
And
I mean,
again, it's not all men and not all women. Like there are shitty girl. So I totally take
you don't have to keep
responsibility.
saying that.
I know, but I really I do feel like there, the male loneliness epidemic. Like I don't want, if you feel bad or if a human feels bad or is being bullied or whatever, like, I don't care if you're a boy or a girl. You know what I'm saying? Like, we
Yeah.
should just,
Right.
like, I want everyone to be okay. Okay. I'm the eldest daughter. I need everyone to be
Yeah.
okay.
Oh, I totally agree. And I think having the attitude that every human life has value is actually revolutionary and subversive, because there are clear examples. You see hierarchy everywhere. You see hierarchy with capitalism, you see it with patriarchy, you see it with racism, and it's all that top-down mentality, and it all hinges on value systems. People believing that men are somehow worth more than women for patriarchy, or that white folks are somehow worth more than black folks or any other minority with racism, or that rich people are somehow better or worth more, besides financially, than poor people. And I think Gaza is a perfect example where, the Israelis do not consider the Palestinians to have the same value as Israelis. And that makes it okay to murder them wholesale, and it's completely invalid.
Well, okay, so I have people in my life that, I like to pick them apart because they don't read enough to, really have an opinion, but they have their opinion from Rush Limbaugh in the car back when they were with our dad. And like the Israel conversation, they're like, well, the Palestinians can't assimilate with the Israelis. And I'm like, okay, how can I, like, who was there first? Like, when, whose land? So I had to be like, I had to lead them to their answer of like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of messed up. But how did your brain not already know that? But like, okay, when did Israel become a state? Oh, after World War II. And then we just decided we were taking that piece of land. Like, did what? And then we're mad at them for not assimilating, not, which who's even to say if they are or they aren't, but who cares anyways? But, you stole their land. What are we talking about?
Yeah, and part of the propaganda message that Israelis hear growing up is that it was a people, or wait, a land without people for a people without a land, and it makes it seem like there was nobody living there, like it was totally empty, even though the last 1,000 years of history is all these battles over Jerusalem and the Holy Land, and like people have been fighting for that little bit of territory for a long, long time now. So there have been people there, and in fact,
It's
boy,
crazy.
Roy Casagrande is one of my favorite historians, and he was talking about how, um, you know, when after 1948, when Jewish people started migrating to Israel, to the Palestine, in large numbers, that Palestinians welcomed them into their homes and were like, come, here, you can stay with us. And then those same people would turn around and then lock the Palestinians out of the home and say, we live here now. I mean, that if there is a more perfect metaphor for the whole situation, I don't think you can come up with one.
That,
Or they were just
metaphorically,
genocided, like
that's how we treated the Native Americans too.
oh God.
Totally. That's settler colonialism.
Absolutely.
And yeah, I mean, they're taking it right out of our playbook. And my wife always likes to talk about like trauma response. It's like the whole population of Israel is having like a trauma response to the Holocaust, and now the cycle of abuse continues.
Yeah, well, the whole victim, like the whole flip flop there is so like a trauma based mind control. Maybe that's where they're coming from with that. Maybe they're pulling like an MK Ultra move here. And I feel like
Dude,
they're
I
doing
feel
it to
like
all of us, all the time.
I feel like our whole culture is an MK Ultra experiment on all of us to constantly manipulate the things that we believe, and manipulate our reality. It's yeah,
Yeah.
I hear you.
It's been okay. When did you start going down this rabbit hole, Scott? I gotta know when you started being like, oh shit, everything's fake. Oh shit. It was
Well,
all a lie, but not a QAnon lie, but not like, oh, fake
right.
news, but like, oh shit. Oh, Ghislaine
Well,
Maxwell's
I would
dad
say,
wrote our history books. Okay. Okay.
I've always had an anti-authoritarian streak. Ever since
World
junior
War II,
high, I had a
baby.
vice principal. I had a vice principal who was a authoritarian jerk, and that started me as just being like, authority sucks. When I was at college, I remember we read Noam Chomsky in some of my communications classes, talking about the propaganda and stuff, and I was resentful about Chomsky, and I'm like, he's being anti-American, and he's not giving us a chance, and so I was resistant to those messages at first, and I think that's totally normal because we all grow up in this propaganda system, and that's a kind of a normal reflexive response. But during the George W. Bush era, during the weapons of mass destruction, I thought that was all crap. I never believed there were weapons of mass destruction. I was like, this is total horse shit.
So you saw through that from the very beginning?
Yeah, oh yeah, from the very first, I was like, why are we going to Iraq? I was young and full of piss and vinegar. The more, so at that point, I was very mainstream, and I was listening to NPR and reading the New York Times, and believing all that stuff, and Paul Krugman was my favorite economist, and all that's changed now. And Noam Chomsky seriously, and I started. And I found another author who was hugely important in my developing class consciousness, named Michael Parenti. And Michael Parenti, I consider the two of them like my two dads. Like, they taught me so much. And I've read so many of their books and listened to so many of their speeches. You can still find tons of Michael Parenti's speeches on YouTube and stuff, and they're great. And I would just listen to him in the car. And, what he was saying made so much sense. And so that's how I first developed class consciousness. And I think that's, people will call it Marxism. And I think Marx is still important because he, developed one of the most comprehensive critiques of capitalism that's ever been developed. And if you're a Marxist, I think that's great. But I think it's, it all boils down to class power and class consciousness. And once you're conscious, once you're awake, that we call it woke, it's not a bad thing to be awake. You're awake.
Read me the definition of woke, because what part of that is
awake.
offending
It means
you?
Awake.
Yeah.
You're awake. You're not going back to sleep.
Yeah.
And African Americans, they have a much easier time of it because they're on the receiving end of so much class-based animosity and hierarchical power in the form of racism. So they live it.
Like an easier time of recognizing these things?
Yeah, I think they live it. Yeah. They experience it in a way that a lot of white folks don't. But I think they're also, the black community is the canary in the coal mine. And
absolutely.
Now under fascism, it's coming for all of us. Yeah, it's coming for everybody.
And no, Scott, people are walking around like everything's normal. Like it's not crumbling, which I'm not saying it doesn't need to crumble. I am, but I'm like, hey, should we build some like infrastructure to have like water and food? But like we can burn all the other shit, but like let's have basic needs met.
Yeah.
Because I also can't watch everybody suffer. That's what I'm trying to prevent.
Yeah. Well, I think that there is a real effort in the propaganda narrative to make us feel hopeless and to make us feel alienated from one another and feel like we can't change anything. And that's just wrong. I think that the people, the public, are incredibly powerful, especially when we get together. And this has been proven time and again in American history and world history. Monarchs have been deposed, dictators have been brought down. It's more than possible when you lose the majority's approval, when you lose the majority support, that you can't rule by force forever. Like one thing Michael Parenti said is you can do anything with bayonets except sit on them.
Right.
And that's true. You can't sit on them.
Okay, Scott, we also work in the operating room. Absolutely, people will try.
Perhaps they slipped
that I believe.
Yeah, usually in the shower. And they come to have it removed.
Why was I cleaning my bayonet in the shower again?
Literally every time. But don't call my wife.
Whoops.
Okay, sorry. I had to go there. Well, okay, I want to go back to your Marxist comment earlier because people freak out because that has been turned into a word by the president. No one else. I'm like,
A scare word, yeah.
you never read history or anything. Shut up. Like, you don't even know. You just think shut up. So,
Well, most of the people that are fired up about all these things, and the average person that, like the person you were saying, yes, listen to Rush Limbaugh, they probably couldn't tell you the difference between a communist and a socialist when it came down to it.
yeah,
They
no.
don't know.
I mean, that could be challenging even for people who are on the left. But
Yeah.
I would define it as socialism. They say as a way because Marx and Engels, they used the words pretty interchangeably back 100 in the 1860s when they were writing Capital and everything. And now the understanding between the two is socialism is the path to communism. So communism is envisioned as a society, a class, no class, no money, no states, no nation states. So the way to get there is by having the workers own the means of production. So that's an important part of communism, but that's also socialism. So when the workers own the means of production and you're on your way to communism, that's socialism.
Well, okay, so for one, that doesn't sound all that bad. Like, okay, an extreme of
It's
okay,
not.
I'm not a okay, but like I'm not anything, okay? I'm my own person. But what I was gonna
Yes, fine.
say was, what is stopping us at any point? Like my dream, because you're talking about building something new, and I mean, I'm also think we're there, but like, why don't we let's study and look and see what all these other countries are doing, also all these old history, people who had these structural ideas, and build, take little pieces. We don't have to do the whole thing of anything.
Well, I think the most important thing, and this is what people don't understand about communism or socialism, is who owns everything. And in capitalism, capitalists own everything. They own the means of production. That's what makes them capitalists because they own capital. They have the property. They have the factories. They have the real estate. And they have the money to finance all of that stuff. So socialism and communism, just imagine, what if we didn't have capitalists? What if instead of having capitalists, we had a mechanism where the public owned something? Like, and this isn't a totally foreign idea to Americans. Like, we have publicly owned utility companies in our country. We have publicly owned cable providers and water companies, and like, just extend that to banks. Like, instead of having
Yeah.
capitalists own banks and shareholders, have it owned like the city of Chicago has a bank. And I take this idea from North Dakota because North Dakota does have a public bank, and it's a perfect example of how you can have a socialist program in a capitalist society and capitalism doesn't crumble. In fact, it's the Bank of North Dakota is so popular that even Republicans wouldn't dream of trying to kill it because it does so much good for their state.
Their money, instead of going to a wealthy CEO, the money goes back into their system.
Exactly. And this is another thing. Like, we have private banks financing all kinds of public projects in this country. Like, if I need a new sewer line in my neighborhood, the city is going to finance that through a bank, and they're going to pay a whole bunch of money in interest and financing to that bank, to it, so it goes to a private organization. So, like, why run it that way? Why not have public works projects, financed by the public?
Well, I can tell you an argument some might have, to play a bit of devil's advocate,
Sure.
is that people might, like in medicine, people might say, well, Medicare is sort of a socialistic insurance company.
Yeah.
Okay, insurance product. And that physician might say, well, Medicare's not reimbursing me enough to cover my costs. I'm basically losing money on certain things, Medicare or especially Medicaid. So that is not that's not a viable option moving forward forever. And I guess the argument for that was that, well, if we could take some of the money that is in the private CEO's pocket of the huge insurance companies and cycle that money through Medicare, then perhaps you could get paid to cover your costs and then some, right? So, I mean, all these things are complicated, but I think at the end of the day, what you're talking about is keeping the money with the people and not Elon Musking it into trillions of dollars that some private guy's got in his pocket.
Yeah, I saw somebody post. Somebody just made a post and I thought it was great. It was that in the last 50 years, China pulled 850 million people out of poverty, and the United States created 1 trillionaire. And that's
exactly
right. I mean, that's the difference right there. That's capitalism. Capitalism is a wealth concentrating machine. And I've done posts. I did a post that I was really proud of called "Capitalism is a Pyramid Scheme."
Yeah.
And it's just like MLMs. It's all about pushing that money up to the top. The people at the bottom do all the work, and the people at the top take all the rewards.
Well, and perhaps one could argue that if it were better regulated, properly regulated, because it's true there are some positives, people get motivated, and I get that, but it's like right now it's a free for all. It's like the end of a Monopoly game. Where you flip the board over and walk off pissed
52
off,
card pickup.
Right, because one person has all the money now and nobody else can buy anything. Yeah.
Yeah, that's where we're at.
Okay, question,
Yeah.
Scott. What are they going
Lay it on
to
me.
do with all of, don't these billionaires know they're not going to have any fun if everybody hates them or they kill everybody? Who's going to be their, build their things and do their stuff? They're going to have slave labor, I feel like. But,
I think you look at what they're doing with AI and
I get it.
The idea is techno-slavery, or they call it techno-feudalism, but I think it's techno-slavery, where they use something like the control grid, which is something that's being actively developed now. It's a combination of digital ID and digital currency. All the central banks across the world are trying to develop central currencies, and when you combine digital currency with digital ID, you can and AI, because you need a lot of computing power, because they'll have little files on every individual person, and you can shut people off. You can just say,
like with the
Scott
cars.
Bennett says things. Yeah, Scott Bennett said, right, like the kill switch, exactly. Like Scott Bennett says things that we don't like,
on
so
Facebook.
we're taking away his banking ability.
Yep.
He can't use any of the money he has. He can't spend any of the money. They just shut you off, and that's how they hope to control all of us in the future. I think the billionaires know. The billionaires know that we don't like them. They always want to be loved, which is so hilarious, because how could you ever love a billionaire? But Mackenzie Scott knows. They have. That's what the billionaire bunkers are for. That's why Peter Thiel has citizenship for Malta and New Zealand, and they have special underground bunkers and stuff that they're building in New Zealand and other places around the world that are isolated. But your point is exactly right, because how do you not have a mutiny in that situation where all the security guys with all their machine guns are told to leave their families outside and just you work for me, you're protecting me. That's not gonna work. It's not gonna work.
That's why they want a robot security force.
Right.
Maybe.
That's why they want the robot dogs and the drones, and they're massively expanding
that still
investment
sounds
in drone
unfun.
warfare.
That sounds unfun.
No, totally unfun.
It's just gonna be Elon Musk and Peter Thiel. Fun. That's a blast.
Woo,
Yeah.
What a party.
What a party. What a party.
So what do you think are the highest yield things that we can do right now to try to right this ship?
My suggestion is to start advocating for a new constitution, and I think that the way that we get there is by general strike. It's peaceful means, but they can't force us all to go to work by gunpoint. I think that we should plan to withhold our labor. There's a plan right now already for a general strike as soon as 2028. The United Auto Workers and a bunch of other unions are saying end your contract on May 1st, 2028. And the idea is to have as many unions as possible all go on strike at the same time. And the rest of us could support them if we start planning now for, you know, making victory gardens and start growing some food and start building up some stocks so that, you know, and it's also the mutual aid kind of things.
Yep.
Like we need to be connecting with the people who live nearby us and building community structures with the people who are close to us and be able to help them out in a trying situation like that.
And I want to point out with that, so many people, again, that are like unaware of what's happening, or, okay, we for so long have not been taught how to do all of these things, or that we're even allowed to have the idea that maybe things could be different. Literally, people are like, the reason that they say I can't do, what can I do about it, is because they've never been told that they can be sovereign in any way or have that,
Totally.
because we had to stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance every morning. And,
Well,
like,
yeah.
I mean, not just that, but I mean, the propaganda that our tax money paid for really did well. And so I actually try to work on just introducing the idea to people that, no, why does it have to be this way? It absolutely does not. You will argue about anything, and you're like, yeah, it's fine, Epstein Island, I don't care. What can I do? And I'm like, oh my God, you will argue over anything. You wouldn't wear a mask during an unknown pandemic. So stop. So you can argue here. You can come up with something. And just even planting that seed, I feel like, be like, no, I don't believe there's nothing we can do. There's got to be something.
Yeah.
And so,
No, that's great. That's great.
yeah.
I totally support that. And one other thing, I don't like to do a lot of victim blaming. I don't like, people think that the only lever that we have is elections because that's all we hear. That's all we hear growing up our entire lives in our education system, and that's the message that's reinforced constantly in our media, in our mass media. One other thing I thought of that we can do actively resist is jury nullification. That's where we all, if you get on a jury and they're trying to prosecute somebody for, protesting an AI data center or some baloney, you would just say, no, I'm not convicting this person. And all it takes is one person on a jury, and it's a hung jury. And that is true democratic power that we all have, that we can all go into a jury room and actually make a difference and say no to, laws that are illegitimate.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, we talk to people a lot on here. We had a girl who was going through the court system, actually representing herself, and she is writing amendments, man. She has a website, and she's like, all we got to do is sign on to these amendments if we have this many people, So there are people that are also like right there with you.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we're rapidly reaching a point where people are going to start in large numbers realizing that this current system is unsustainable. I think it's already actively disintegrating right in front of our eyes. And I think it's just going to become more and more obvious to everyone that what we have now is not working, and we can't keep pretending that it's going to work. Because, people who think that voting in 2026 or 2028 is somehow going to right the ship, I think we're like the Titanic, like the tail is like up in the air, like, how much do you think it's gonna change?
Well, I'm so glad that we're still able to have these conversations, and
Yeah.
right now, as of now, I think we should
and that's
start.
an important part of resistance also.
And that we still have the freedom to do that, because they are coming in hot. People don't think that. I mean, I don't know if you've seen all the social media people that are reporting having, Border Patrol.
FBI show
Yeah,
up.
people come to their house about a social media post.
I'm expecting it.
I mean, yeah, poor Tony. Sorry, Tony. Um, poor
Yeah.
Tony. He got,
Cease and desist from the president?
I
Come
know,
on.
dude, it's so like, and
That's
he's the
absurd.
best person to get it too. He's like,
Yeah.
Well, now's a good time to say that, the three of us love this country very much. And we
Absolutely.
want it to be the best it can be. And we're not talking about overthrowing anything, or we're not talking about hurting anybody. We're talking about taking what we have and recognizing that it's not working, and legally and peacefully and creatively changing it into something we want it to be.
because it's our country.
Yes.
It's our country.
That's right.
It is not poopy pants. It is not, it's all of these elected officials work for us. Like, we need to start getting back in the narrative and taking back the narrative. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, and they have got a full state-run media going. Like, but there are so many content creators just like you that have so many followers, and people listen to what you have to say because you say it confidently. You have receipts. You're bringing forward ideas that are worthwhile to listen to, and everybody has that power. And so
Scott, can you remind us what your education is in? Like, what was your degree in college? And
Yeah, I never rely on my my academic credentials. I had a double major in English and Communications at University of Michigan. So that's not something that's like, oh my God, we got to listen to this guy because he has an English degree. But so all of my political learning was, largely autodidactic on my own, learning this stuff after I graduated college. But the most important thing that my college education gave me was critical thinking ability.
absolutely.
right.
And the ability to ask questions about all the narratives that we are presented in our lives, and
Yeah.
and looking at them critically and saying, this is all built to benefit somebody else,
Yeah.
to
Well,
benefit people who are
liberal
not like
arts
us.
education right now is really taking a hit, but we have to have people that know how to think. That's
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, and that's why education is under attack.
absolutely.
of course.
We touched on social media a second ago, and I think it's so important. I had a experience recently where, I never really thought of myself as a journalist. Like you said,
We're
I was
all
doing a lot
citizen
more
journalists.
education. Right, but like I went down on this to the Thomas Massey thing. Oh, here's my daughter Veronica. She wants to say hi. Hi,
Hey,
pal.
Veronica.
Hi. Hey, girl. So many friends in our show tonight.
She's gonna cop a seat down here in the background. Okay.
Betcha.
But yeah, so I got invited by this influencer, Tiffany Cianci, who's, kind of a big deal. And she said, come down and help us out with this Thomas Massey campaign. And I'm a leftist, and, I was like a Republican, I don't know. But he was instrumental in getting the Epstein files released, and he's the only Republican basically who votes against money for Israel and the genocide. So anyway,
Yes.
I went down there, and I was there when he was in the ballroom giving his concession speech after losing, and I was like, "Oh my God, I'm a journalist." But this is it, man. This is the difference between social media and mass media.
Yeah.
Is that we are all empowered now. We all have the printing press. We all have the power of the printing press. And the the power of the video camera, and we can reach people in a way that there used to be so many barriers to getting the word out. Or there's no way I would have almost 100,000 followers if I was trying to get a job as a columnist for the New York Times or the Chicago Tribune or anything like that. So social media is removing all those barriers and letting people learn, without the top-down hierarchy of guidance.
Well,
Right.
and the propaganda can't work as well because you
Exactly.
can't lie because 37,000 people videotaped it on their phone. Okay. So
Right.
I'm going to find
Right.
it, and I can find it. I don't know what the FBI's been doing, but I can find it. So,
Yeah.
I'll find so-and-so who posted it. But
And nobody owns us. We
pay to do
Yeah.
this. This is our
Yeah,
hobby.
Tina and I actually lose money doing this.
I know. I'm right with you. I'm right with you.
I know, I'm like, hold on, I have to inform people for free. It's fine. But
Yeah.
seriously, I want you to know so we can all be okay, guys. That's what I want.
Can I ask you one more question before we go? I'm
Absolutely.
super curious what do you think about Bernie Sanders?
I love Bernie. I think Bernie's great. I think, but I think Bernie is a classic example of how the two-party system is never going to allow real change like Bernie wants. And Bernie's proposals, he's not even
Crazy.
proposing anything that crazy.
No.
Like, he wants to take us back to the 1950s kind of social democracy, social security, Medicare kind of ideas. He's not proposing anything that touches the ownership structure, which I think is ultimately the most important question in our society is, do we have capitalists owning everything, or do we have the public owning everything? Because that's the most fundamental question about getting out of this situation, because you can't keep the billionaires. You can't ask them to, please give us universal health care, or please give us, subsidized child care, or free college.
Give me a crumb.
Right? Because, right. Like, all of those are bribes to get us to keep the system that we have now. They want us to keep this system, and the Democrats kind of serve that function of softening down those edges making this system that we have bearable for the working class. But all it is a bribe to keep capitalism.
Yeah.
Lou, you are very distracting, pal. Yeah.
I feel like his heart's in the right place, and he's done the best he could to do what he could in this system for all these years.
Yeah, but
I respect that he's been saying the same things for 40 years,
Yeah, absolutely. I have a ton of respect for Bernie and a lot of affection in my heart for him. But the Democratic Party stabbed him in the back in 2016, and they admitted it in court that they cheated so that Hillary Clinton would win the nomination. And right there is, if you could imagine a Mom Donnie running for president, then they would do to him exactly what they did to Bernie and put in Gavin Newsom. They want somebody who's going to support. And Gavin Newsom, scion of a billionaire family, and he's all tied in with that elite wealthy class, and we get fed stuff by the mass media like he's the next second coming. Like, oh, we got a new guy, he's going to be so great, but he hates homeless people, and he personally goes to kick them out of homeless encampments. It's like, we know where this guy stands in the class war.
Scott, all I see is Manchurian candidates every time now. And I am just like, oh, he's, and then you just.
Not a lot to get excited about.
Hey, girl.
Podcast.
She wants to play. But.
Goose Island.
But yeah, I just am like, who's controlling who? But I also go down that rabbit hole because that's what I really think is going on. So, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, what a wonderful talk. I so appreciate you being here. This has been great.
I had a great time. This is a great conversation. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Totally.
I would love to.
We love reoccurring guests, and I didn't even get into half the stuff that I had written down that I wanted to talk about. So
save it for next time. I guess.
I will.
And can you tell us again, like, your handle on TikTok?
Yeah, I'm on TikTok. I'm Let's Make Them Pay. You can also find me if you search Scott Bennett. Okay. And my Substack is my main channel, letsmakethempay.substack.com. You can also find me Let's Make Them Pay book on Instagram, and Let's Make Them Pay on YouTube.
Okay.
I will link that down at the bottom. But yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Scott. And yeah, we're totally going to have you back soon.
That sounds great. Right. I would love it.
For everybody at home, thanks for listening and keeping us in your ears while you're doing your daily lives. And Thank you. We just appreciate you. And if you have any questions or any ideas about things we could talk about, just reach out and let us know. Make sure you check out Scott on social media and Substack.
Thank you.
All right. Well, have a nice night, guys. Take care.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
I know. I'm excited about it too.